Over 20% of children, or 69 million, grapple with poverty across the 40 wealthiest nations. UNICEF said in a report released Wednesday criticizing Britain and France for their poor standings. This is equivalent to around 6 million children out of a total child population of 291 million, said UNICEF Innocenti, the United Nations Agency research arm. But at the end of 2021, there were still more than 69 million kids in poverty in those countries. The UNICEF figures is based on relative poverty, which is around 60% of the national median income, often used in developed countries to establish their own poverty levels. To discuss this further, we have with us Dr. Ali Horriyat, founder of Compassiviste and international relations expert. Can you sum up in a few minutes the factors contributing to the persistence of child poverty in wealthier nations, some of the challenges these children face, and perhaps some sustainable long-term solutions to break this cycle?
Alaikum assalam, and thank you for having me on the show again. I am really shocked about the statistics. 20% of children in wealthier nations are living in poverty. And this is atrocious, to say the least. Now, contributing factors, immediately, income inequality. Minimum wage today is way too low for living expenses, generally, in these wealthier countries. And you have costs, housing costs, healthcare costs that contribute to this issue for families. And post-pandemic, there has also been a spike in discriminatory behavior, gender issues, racism, and other discriminations against poor children from poorer backgrounds. And family structure has to be looked at as well. There is a lot of mental health issues now. It's a growing concern in the world, which is affected from similar conditions. And a lot of the families with addictions or mental health issues detrimentally affect children. And so these concerns pile up, and they affect children, and they affect the households, and they affect the rise of children out of poverty, because generally, if you notice the statistics as well, poverty is an intergenerational issue for poorer families. It's perpetual, and it continues. It's a cycle, and we want to break this cycle. And to break this cycle, we really have to also look at government policies, which becomes an issue as well, as they are very effective when government policies are functional. But when we cut them and when we take out certain programs, social extracurricular programs, social safety nets, and other supports for communities, then these detrimentally affect the kids, and that's one of the worst things we can do to the children, because it affects their development. It affects their mental development. It also affects their physical development, because some of these programs are not necessarily educational, but they are sports activity programs and activities that support their play, their development, and their social development in that aspect. So these are important things to keep in mind. And so these problems become really effective to the child's growth. Now, there is a side issue of global impact. So when you look at the world and you look at the global issues, whether you're looking at conflict or violent conflict or climate change, these impact children as well. They impact them indirectly through the previous cited issues like income inequality from inflation, from wars, for example, or from climate change, from a shortage of food. So, children cannot be fed well, they cannot be provided the nutrition that they need to grow well, and so this creates health issues, and not having enough money creates issues that don't support being able to develop properly. And to curb these, we really need to invest And we need to invest in social safety nets. We need to invest in childhood education and early childhood education. We need to invest in healthcare systems, at least to make them public for children, if not everybody. And these government policies have to come into place and to support families in need, and to be able, through the government, through institutions, and through communal programs, to fight discrimination, and to also shed light and awareness on the global issues and climate change in specific. And this leads to the long-term issue and the long-term response. I mean, when you ask what are the long-term manners of resolving this or minimizing the problem that we have with children facing these issues, I think that if we implement the short-term issues well, they grow and they become the long-term issues in themselves gradually over time. And we really have to take on the climate change issue more seriously, which will allow children to have a more equitable development through life.